Hello folks. Today I wanted to go over how you can write an app script to import CSV files. Often in our work we want to automate a CSV import either to replace data that we're using or perhaps to append data. So let's look at ways we can do that with app script. First of all, if you're going to import a CSV file, you can do it manually, so File, Import, and you could look for a file that you might already have in Drive. I happen to have one here, so I want to import this data set, Insert. When you do this manually, you have a choice of what you're going to do, and in this case, what I want to do is replace, or I want to append to the current sheet. I'm in cell A1, so if I just do that and import the data, there's my data set, and it was just imported. So that's good. Now I think I'll clean this up a little bit. I'll lock that top row. I will go ahead and make that bold. So here's my data set, and what I'd like to do now is write an app script so that I could automate this procedure. So let's take a look at how we could do that. So the first step would be to launch AppScript. And then what we might want to do with this is, first of all, rename our project. We'll call it Import Data Set. And let's rename that. And then what we would need to do is write a script that would automatically set this up for us. So let's go ahead and see what that would take. So we have the start of a function here. Let's first of all create a function called onOpen, and that's a special function that we use to create a menu that we can use to make it easier to work with our sheet. So our function onOpen is going to be, first of all, we need to do, let's start with spreadsheet app dot get UI. We'll go ahead and start with that, and then we will dot create menu, and let's create a menu, and let's create a menu called import data. And then let's do dot add item, and let's add an item. Let's call this item import data. And then followed by a comma, and this is going to be the function, which we haven't written yet, so it's going to be import data. The function we'll call import new data. Now that function doesn't exist yet, so we'll have to fix that. And let's just start with that, and then let's go ahead and add to UI, and that should create our onOpen function. Now, I want that to say data. So import, we're going to create a menu, and in that menu we're going to have a function called import new data, which isn't done yet. Let's go ahead and save this. And then we need to create a new function. And this function is going to be, we don't want the uppercase, so function is going to be, let's call this function import new data. Import new data. And notice we've already created that up here, so it's showing up. And we're going to create a new function called import new data. And then we're going to create our open and close brackets, and then we'll finish writing this out. our first step is going to be to get a hold of the CSV data. And in order to do that, we need to create some variables. So we're going to have a const, and the first const will be, create a const called folder is equal to, so this is going to be the spreadsheet app dot, no, actually this is going to be drive app. So drive app dot get folder by ID, and in here we're going to have to get the folder ID of where we're going to store this file, or where we're going to receive this file from. So we'll have to switch to our drive. This is where my folder is. So what I'm going to want to do here is go ahead and grab this ID. Now the ID is everything after folders, and the slash. We want to grab everything that follows that slash. We'll go ahead and copy that. We'll come back to our script, and we're going to paste in that folder ID. That would be our first step. Our next const is going to be file. And let's go ahead and define that. Actually, we'll call this second const our file name. And that's going to be equal to, and in this case, it's going to be equal to the file name that we're going to import, assuming the file name would always be called the same, dataset.csv. So dataset.csv. CSV. Okay, that's going to give us our file name. And then we're going to want to do a const file equal to, the file is going to be equal to folder dot get files by name, and the file by name we're going to get is file name, and then we're going to do dot get next. Actually, not get next, it's next. Okay, so now, and let's go ahead and follow the protocol here and put our semicolons at the end of every line. That's best practice. Okay, so we're looking in a folder, we're looking for a file name, and we're getting the next version of that file name if it exists. Our next process is going to be get the data. So we're going to do that with this code. We'll do another constant. That's going to get us our next, or pull all the data into a blob. We'll let CSV string be equal to data blob our data blob dot. So our next step, I'm going to paste in a couple lines of code here. We want the CSV data, another constant, is going to be equal to, using a utilities function, we're going to parse the CSV of the CSV string data that we created there, and then we're going to remove the header row. And let's go ahead and save our script so far. Next step is going to be let's paste the data into the sheet. So let's first do a const. Call it SS is going to be equal to the spreadsheet app dot get active spreadsheet. That's going to give us our active spreadsheet. And then we want const sheet equals ss dot get sheet, ss dot get sheet by name. Let's get our sheet by name. And in this case, let's see, what do we have? Our sheet name here. In this case, our sheet name is import. So we want to get the sheet by name import. Our next const will be const range is equal to sheet dot get range. And the range we want to use, we want to actually get row 2. We'll start at row 2, and the reason for that is that we're going to, we used the CSV data.shift, and that removed our header row. So we're not going to bring in the header row. So we're going to get 2, we're going to start at column 1, and then we need to know how many rows and how many columns. And the number of rows is going to be the CSV data dot length. And then the number of columns is going to be CSV data. And then we're going to want to know of the first row, so we would put in a 0, identifying the first row, dot length. So we want to know the length of that. And then see, we're starting at row 2, column 1, we have the number of rows and the number of columns. And then when we have that data, we want to actually, I think we need to, we don't need these because those would be implicit in there. So dot length, so that's our data set, that's our range, dot get values. We want to get all the values in that range. Actually, we got the values. We want to set those values. And the values we want to set is the CSV data that we had created. Let's go ahead and save. Now let's see if we can't test this out and see how it works. We've already saved the script, so we could try to run the script from here, but in order to do that, let's go back, take a look at the sheet. Right now we actually have all this data in here, so let's do a quick Command Shift right, Command Shift down, delete all the data. We're going to write a script here to follow up and get a way to delete the data with a script. But let's go back to the script. Now that we've done this, we have this on open script. Let's go ahead and run that. Now it is going to ask for permissions the first time you create this and run the script. I'm going to give it permissions to run. It's going to see our Google Drive folders and edit our spreadsheets. We're going to allow that. And on open should run, and let's see what happens when we run the on open script. And notice I now have a new menu called import data. that came about because of the script here, the onOpen script, and we're importing new data. So let's go ahead and see what happens if we run the script import data. And there we go. So the script that we've created will import data. As you can see, this 100 rows of data. Now, in running a script like this, we might have different needs at different times. We might want to, see, we're starting automatically at row 2 and going to row 1, or starting in column 1. If we wanted to run this script so that it was appending data, then instead of starting on row 2, we're going to start on the sheet. Let's see what happens if we change this. We're going to start on our sheet dot get last row. So, and then we're going to want to do a +1. So let's see what happens if we save that and run the script again. We'll take a look at our spreadsheet. We're down here on get last row +1, column 1, how much data. Let's go ahead and import again. And what we should see, we've got a problem here. Let's take a look and see what's causing this problem. And I think what we're missing here is that get last row +1. Let's go ahead and, so we've come back to our sheet. Let's dismiss this and let's try this again. And let's try that again. I think we had forgotten to save the script. Make sure we save the script, import data, and there we go. So now you can see that we are, we've added another set of rows. So if we were to run this again, just to show, import data, we're continuing to append the data. So if that was not what we wanted to do, and we wanted to replace the data, we're going to have to run another script in the meantime. So what we would want to do is, depending on what you want to do here, we could write a new function. Let's write a new function, and this new function will be clear range. We'll just call it a new function called clear range. And what we want to do in that function is go ahead and let's get the spreadsheet. Now, one way we could have done this would have been to put the spreadsheet in the sheet as a global, but we didn't. So we're going to have to do a const. SS is equal to spreadsheet app dot get active spreadsheet. And then we're going to need to do const sheet is equal to ss dot get sheet by name, and the sheet that we're doing is called import. Okay, and then our next, oops, we got to go there. Our next step is going to be const range is equal to sheet dot get range, and the range we want to get in this case is 2 column row 2 column 1. Well, you know, you could use a A1 notation here. I think we have a single quotes, A2 colon, how many rows, columns of data do we have here? F, A2 F, A2 colon F. So that defines our data range. And then let's do range dot clear contents. Let's clear the contents of the range. The difference between clear and clear contents is clear would clear all your formatting and everything. So maybe we would just go ahead and use this. And that should be a function now that would clear the range. Now one thing we could do is come up here and add an item. So we'll do dot add item. And the item that we're going to add is, that could be single quotes or double quotes. Let's test that out. So the item we want to add is clear data. And the function we're going to run is called clear range. So we created that function. Let's go ahead and save that. Let's change this to on open. Let's run it. And then let's come back to our sheet. Let's check import data. Let's see what happens when we clear data. Bingo. So now our data is gone. Import data. Perfect. So in order to get this to run here, we could come back to the script, and before we after we check to see if we have this file name, let's go ahead and see whether or not we have the file, because if the file doesn't exist, this is going to stop. If the file does exist, the next step I'd want to do is to just run this script here, clear range. So we're just going to tell it to run that script. Let's go ahead and put a little space there so we see. So now if we save our script, come here, we have data. We're going to import data. We should first clear the data. And notice the data clears, the data rewrites, and now we're not appending. So it all depends on what you want to do with that. One last step in here would be to rename this, so that if this file is going to be replaced automatically in your Google Drive folder every day, you want to be able to run this script on a trigger and update your data set. So we can add one last step to our script, and that's going to be to rename the file after we have run the script. So after we finish pasting in the data, what we want to do here is, I'm going to paste in this line of code. We're going to take the file and we're going to set a new name to that file. So let's see what happens now when we run this again. We'll come back over here to our script. We can do one of two things. We can clear the data first, or we can just import the data. Import data. We've added a new function, so we have to reauthorize, because now we changed our script to where we needed to reauthorize. I'm going to have to run that again. Import data. It should clear. It should add the data. But if we come back here now, we should see processed with the date. So now that we've done that, if the script were to run again, notice we're going to get an error, because it's going to run and tell me that there is no file called dataset. And we could fix that and get it to run. We would rename this to dataset.csv. Dataset CSV. And now if we came back to our sheet, dismiss this. Let's first of all go ahead and clear our data. That should work just fine, but let's import the data. It's cleared, but then it's going to import your data set with a quick paste, and we're going to come back and see that we've processed that file. So that's it, folks. It's a fairly simple script, as you can see. Not that many lines of code. We have an on-open script, we have an import new data script, and we have a clear range script. The clear range could be included in here without a function, but this way, if you ever need to, you have a menu item that lets you clear your data. As simple as that. Hope you enjoy.